Hello everyone, Scott here from Pillow Partners with this week's live Pillow Talk podcast. Super excited this week because I have a very good long-term friend, Giuseppe, and Giuseppe is a doctor. He's got a fantastic story, all revolving around property. I would love to give him a great introduction, but I know I wouldn't do it justice. So I'm going to pass over to Giuseppe to give us a little brief introduction and just let us know who you are, little 30 seconds about your business, and then we'll get into some questions and let the audience know more. Over to you, Giuseppe.
That's great. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Scott, for the invitation, and welcome everybody to join here. So my name is Dr. Giuseppe Paladini. I'm from Italy, from what you can say in the name. I came in the UK in around 2008 to do my PhD at the University of Stirling. And I had no clue about properties by then. You know, I've rented properties when I was in Italy. I've rented properties here in Scotland, the UK, but I never had a clue about, getting on the other side of the business. And then, I became a professor at the University of Stirling and, watching some webinars, then the penny dropped. I said, wait a minute, there is something else out there that I haven't noticed so far. So people are making money. I didn't have money. So how are the people going to afford big villas, big cars, going on holiday 4 or 5 times a year and so on? And I was like, I come from a very humble background, Scott, you know that. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, I don't have any rich parent or uncle that can give me the money to buy properties. How do I do and how are the people doing it? So it was not like for me, it's not possible to do it and close my mind off. It was like, how are they doing it? And who are they using, to help them to learn all these skills? Because it's a new language, as you know. So, yeah.
Perfect. And now we'll get into the property because you're a very successful entrepreneur, trainer, mentor, buy-to-let landlord, letting agency owner. We will cover all that, but go back to because you'd mentioned you just skirted over the fact that you've got a PhD. So tell us a little bit about your academic background before you made the jump into entrepreneurship.
Right. So I've done my university, in Italy, and everything was in public health, mostly like vet studies, more specifically fish health. And then I came to Scotland because it was one of the biggest labs, one of the biggest universities doing that topic. And I didn't speak a word of English back then. So imagine my first English was learned in Scotland. So as you can see, I struggle a little bit.
3 languages. You speak 3 languages: English, Italian,
and Spanish. Then after I met my wife, who is Mexican.
Wow.
So the time in Scotland, I loved it. I decided to move here, and I was teaching. So I have a passion for teaching, and I was teaching public health. However, I couldn't find it, fulfilling 100% because there was lots of admin politics behind, the university, etc. I loved it, but I was more passionate on the teaching side. And then I was like, what if I can teach something that is more relevant to people? Because nobody teaches about finance, mortgages, how to retire early and all this stuff. And for me, it was like, okay, I've learned this now that there is another world. So I want to be part of it as well. In terms of, I'll tell you a funny story, Scott, you love this. It's funny that when I was at university in Italy, I passed, all the exams with the top of the scores, etc. But I wasn't always a good student. I was always doing just enough because I couldn't find that right motivation. At the university, one of the first exams that I did that I couldn't be bothered, to be honest, were 2 exams that I failed and I had to retake. And one was English, which was the easiest exam that everybody passed. And the second one was fish health. And I don't know how, but I ended up in Scotland teaching fish health in English.
There you go. And I love that story because the language barrier, and there's lots of chat and debate, especially as we record this now, the things that are happening in this country. And I think the Home Secretary was sacked this morning. I don't follow the news. I never look at the news, but I see she was sacked today or over the weekend. But people come to this country not knowing the language and massively excel, from people in my community that have pretty much a lot less opportunities. So one of the reasons I wanted to get you on is, one, you came to this country. I didn't know you didn't speak English. Europeans are much better at us British. We just assume people will speak English and our language, but coming here not speaking English, did not know that. That's fantastic. And coming here and conquering the business world as well. So fantastic. We've known each other, I'll say 5 years. Do you think it's longer? 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years, yeah.
And when we met, you were kind of mid-transition. You still had the full-time employment at the University of Stirling as a professor. So that's pretty grand. And again, I'm not academic in any way. I left school, no qualifications, and was told, listen, you'll never achieve anything in life, Mr. Weir. And I thought, well, I'm going to get a better qualification than all the teachers that told me I was stupid. So I went on to get a degree and a master's degree, but not a PhD. So when I met you, I'm like, wow, that guy's got a PhD. That's pretty amazing. And the dedication and the time to devote your life to get that. So well done. But you were already successful in the buy-to-let world. You were getting into other things. So when we met 5 years ago, massive changes between then. There was lockdown. So tell us where you are, because your business is in the background there. Tell us about your agency, your academy, and where you are now.
So I've started investing properly in property in December 2017. So not long ago, let's say about 6 years ago. But I was doing serviced accommodation, I've been doing serviced accommodation for 11 years now. And I didn't know it was called service accommodation. I didn't know it was a proper business. I was just renting a room in my house and so on. At the beginning to pay the rent, and then to pay the mortgage. But then when I started seriously in 2017, I found out all the property, etc. That was a big motivation for me to make it work. Now the shift from being a professor, a university professor with a stable job, a nice salary, permanent position that ideally you never leave until you die. Yeah. Then, for me was when my daughter was born, because I was leaving home at 8:30 in the morning. She was sleeping. Then I was coming back at 6:30 in the evening, and she was awake for half an hour, have dinner, and then go back to sleep. And I say, I'm not doing this for 40 years. I have to find another way. And to me, it's very personal. The reason why you do something. For me was, my daughter at the time. Now I have 2 kids, so that was double motivation. Yep. And the shift for me was quite simple in terms of, it was hard, but no, I didn't feel it. It was hard because you have 2 things. One is the motivation, one is the need. So if your motivation, if you're, forget about that. I'll repeat again. One is the need and the motivation. One is the pain. Okay. So if your need is stronger than the pain, you won't feel the pain.
Yeah.
But if your pain and the comfort zone is stronger than the need and the motivation, then of course you won't do anything. You won't take action. Simple as that. Because it's easier not to do.
Yep.
And for me, it was like the motivation was so strong and the need was so strong that I was left with about 30, 40 pounds in the bank every month before the next payday. Then I was like, there must be another way. My wife is Mexican, so we had to travel to Mexico. So the tickets was quite expensive. And then to Italy, that was, those 2 were the holidays we were making. So visiting the parents. And I'm not going to get drunk in the pub. I don't have a car. I had a bike. I was working most of the time. So I was like, I'm not spending money. How is it possible I don't have money in the bank? So as you can see, different motivations, and I said, has to work. And then that's when I took the jump to say, I can do this. I can do property full time.
Nice. And when we met in person before lockdown, you had quit as a university professor. You jumped into a full-time job to immerse yourself in property. And then a little after that, you thought, well, I'm going to give up the security. I've already given up. Again, you've said professor. Yeah. You can be a professor forever. Pretty much impossible to sack you, I would imagine. Yes. So a secure job, pension, sick pay, all that more, the most one of the most secure jobs with the most benefits you would get in the kind of public sector, and jumped into work for a property company. And again, losing all those benefits, but the sector suited you better, and then you gave up that job to jump up and pretty much have no certainty of income. Now you have a letting agency and training academy. Tell us about that.
Yes. So currently I have two companies. They're doing two different things, but they're all property related. Stepping Bricks, as you can see in my background, is the training company where I teach people how to invest in property. I have my academy, which is a 12-month mentoring program. And this is what I'm passionate about. You remember I told you I'm still passionate about teaching, but I want to teach something that is relevant, that works for people. And currently our portfolio, we have 20 properties. They are owned, by ourselves, by our company. And we just completed, 2 days ago, on the number 20. We have about 33 overall in the portfolio, because we have some rent, service accommodation, etc., that we manage for other people. And the letting agency and estate agency, so we do property sales and lettings, is called Golden Tree Estates. We're based in Stirling. We cover, about 30 miles from Stirling, so Edinburgh, Glasgow as well. And it was born a bit like another need. Once we reached a number of properties that we were managing, I was like, what do we do? Shall we give them to a letting agent, letting agency, or what? But every time we were renting out one of our properties, which, by the way, we rent it within 3-4 days max. Okay, so we have total 1 week from collecting the key, doing the work, and putting the tenant in if the property is in good state. If it needs a full refurb, like bathroom, kitchen, ceiling, electricity, painting, decorating, etc., we take 4 weeks. So we offer that service to investors as well, that we can manage for them. So the letting agency was born as a need, I was saying, because every tenant that was moving in our properties were coming from managed lettings. And they were telling us all the horror stories about, how the letting agents were not responding, there were problems they were not fixing, they were overcharging, and so on. So we said, I'm not trusting anybody. Like, I don't have trust issues, but, listening to all these stories, like, I don't want to give all my properties to somebody that's not going to care about my properties and about my tenants, because I do care about my tenants. So I want to have somebody that can actually do the job properly. And then with my wife, we discussed, we said, you know what, let's do all the qualification, certification for the letting agency, and let's do it our own. And then we can, with the same money, we can employ people to actually do, the work and grow the business. So, and then the sales part came a bit after the lettings, because it made sense. We were receiving so many deals, off-market deals. We say, well, we can sell it. We can sell them either to investors if they are suitable for investments, or to the general public if they're suitable for first-time buyers, etc. So we do the full circle. We do the teaching, we find the properties, we refurbish them, we find the tenants, we manage the lettings.
Cool. And it seems like every time I jump onto social media, I see you buying another property. I think my feed is with you with keys of buying another property. So let me know, because anyone that watches me knows 100% I blood, sweat and tears serviced accommodation, and again, similar journey to yours with the agency, but probably 90% of people don't know I own a letting agency and estate agency, because I'm always focused on serviced accommodation. But tell me, you're obviously involved, you're backing the buy-to-let, you're constantly building your portfolio. What's your thoughts on, I suppose, where we are now? Because it was only last week you bought a new property. So
Yes.
what's your thoughts on the buy-to-let, the vanilla residential let and forget market, and building wealth via property ownership in the buy-to-let market? What's your thoughts?
My thoughts is simple. There is always a solution to every problem. So whatever the rules is going to change, you need to adapt to the rule, and you need to change with it.
Yep.
I don't dwell on the past. I don't think like, oh, that was a good time when you could buy properties for 120% mortgage, etc. I wasn't there. I couldn't do it. So there's no point in remembering those days. The only thing I can see now is stamp duty, or additional dwelling supplement is 6% in Scotland, 3% in England, 4% in Wales. It is what it is. I have to just bite the bullet and continue. If I start listening to all the negative thoughts about the property market and the crash and whatever, I won't do anything. So for me, it worked when I moved into the property world. I have different strategies in my portfolio. I have commercial, buy to let, rent to buy, service accommodation, rent to rent, all of them. Ideal packaging. I do all of them because I do one, master it, and then move to the next one. I don't do all together. But whatever the politicians are going to decide, it is what it is. I don't want to accept it passively. But what can I do? If I complain, is it going to change anything?
Well, the good thing about the media would have you believe everybody's exiting the market. Again, there's still going to be the demand, if not increasing demand, for residential lettings and housings. We're many, many years away from the build to rent companies and the VC companies and the banks filling that gap with the stock. The government's never going to do it, despite them saying it every year. So there's a massive supply of stock, but an ever increasing supply of customers. So if landlords are leaving the market, that means that property prices, unless they put rent caps, demand is going to go up, supply is going to go down, and that's fantastic. As we record this, the same is happening in serviced accommodation in Scotland. I would suspect that at least 40% of the stock will disappear by the end of 2024, but demand is going to stay the same, if not increase. So barriers to entry, Giuseppe, I love it. Smarter person than me put me onto that. Never be in an industry where there's no barriers to entry, because anybody can do it. So now that landlords have a little bit more costs, loads of legislation and bits and bobs and registering the local authority. When we started, gas safety check, that was it. Nothing. There was landlords. They could do anything back in the day. Highly, highly regulated in Scotland, but those barriers to entry, hopefully cleaning up the market and making it a better place for tenants, which you mentioned is one of your priorities. But less people are going to be in it, but the demand is still increasing. So that is a market. One, barriers to entry, some regulation, meaning the cowboys won't want to do it, hopefully leaving the professionals, a never increasing supply of customers, a decreasing amount of people supplying for those customers. So market forces, quite a nice place to be. So I think I wanted to get you on because I really admired you in your time of giving up a full-time job to jump into property. And I know there's many, many people out there. We've got lots of employees. I think we've got 39. One started today, young Philip. But we have lots of franchisees as well. And there's people, hundreds of conversations we've had this year, people reluctant to make that jump. Full-time employment, especially as a professor or a nurse or a policeman or whatever, and jumping into the uncertainty of being an entrepreneur. Who knows what's going to happen? The first question I want to ask before I get some tips off you is, I have met your lovely wife, and she's 100% in the business, and she's very supportive, and I'm pretty sure she's the driving force of the business as well. But at the time when you left University of Stirling and then your full-time job, did you get the full support of your wife, or was she the rational one saying, hey, cash?
Good question. I think I had always the support of Olga. So she's always supported me, even if she was scared. She couldn't sleep the first time, we bought the first property, and when I was starting to talk about, leaving the full-time job, etc. Remember, at that time we only had one salary, because we were a daughter, and then Olga wasn't working, for somebody else, but she was working very hard in the house. But yes, the support has always been there. What has not been there is the support of the relatives, family.
Yeah.
Not because they were negative or anything. It's because they were scared, understandably. So I see a lot of people that speak to me, we have consultations, etc. They don't have the support of the family. And I would say it's normal. It's completely normal, because your vision is only in your head. You are the only one that can see it. The other ones cannot see it. So whatever you see in the future, a little window in the future, is in your head. And unless you share it with them, it's very hard for them to understand why you want to do this step. You want to take this step.
Yep.
So the fear is going to be there. It was there. and it's going to be there in the future as well. It just shifts from one task that you don't know, to the next task that you don't know. So when you ride the bicycle, at the beginning you don't know how to ride a bicycle. So you're scared of falling, falling, and then you will fall, because that's part of it. But it's, again, you stand up and you start again, and now you can ride a bicycle without even thinking. So you don't have that fear anymore in that task, but the fear just shifts somewhere else, in things that you don't know. So if you want to get in property, for example, or if you want to start a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, the beginning is always the hardest, because you don't know, what's going to happen. You don't know what you don't know. But as you go along, consistency probably is the main tip, I could give people. Consistency, education and action together, because there's no point in educating yourself and not taking action. They say knowledge is power.
Yep.
Scott, knowledge is not power. It's powerless alone. But the implementation of knowledge is powerful, because if you know how to open a parachute, but then when you're jumping off the plane, you don't open it, you're not taking action, there's no point in just knowing it. It's not going to give you the results that you want. So these are the main things. Talking about the support of the family, jumping into entrepreneurship and something else. It's only your mind. Share your vision with other people that you want them to be involved with. And this is one of the reasons, Scott, as well, in the academy, in the Stepping Bricks Academy, we allow partners to join for free, because I understand how important is the support of the partner. Because if you can do something together, that's fantastic. And I hear a lot of people say, yes, but my wife or my husband doesn't want to know anything about property, so they don't want to be involved. And I say, it's fine, they don't have to be involved. Just link what you need to what they need. How do you link? How do you bridge these two things? Well, simple. If they want, for them is important, something else is important. For example, I don't know, sending the kids to private school.
Yep.
Or going on holiday 3 times a year, or whatever it is important for them. Just tell them that with the money from property, you can do these other things. So you can link your needs with their needs, not just by convincing them of being in property, but by getting the same benefits of you, by doing it.
Well, I was going to ask you to finish with some top tips, but I think you've given loads there. Share your vision, loads of tips there. Final question for me before we finish up, our final question to you is, you've given your time to share some knowledge, and I hope the audience have got some top tips. I've certainly learned some things as well, and you've inspired me, so thank you. I want to finish. You've given your time. If people are watching this, tell me how they could work with you, because you've got a business. If you had an ideal customer, give me in 30 seconds, what is your ideal customer? Anyone watching in the audience, how would they work with you?
So if we're talking about Stepping Bricks, I want to work with people that are committed, they really want to make a change in life, because I made the biggest change in my life because I was committed. So if you're just doing it as a hobby, don't do it, don't bother, because the hobby is going to cost you money. But if you're doing it, as a business, then the business is going to make you money. Yes, you have to work hard. Yes, you have to, work longer than the normal 9-to-5 job, but the rewards are way, way more than the 9-to-5 job. Regarding, if I can close on a little story about a Chinese farmer.
Go for it. No, go for
There
it.
is always, we were talking about the government, the news, the changes and stuff. So is it good news? Is it bad news? The licensing in service accommodation, the demand in buy-to-let, etc. Always put this to you. Is it good news or bad news? We don't know. So there is this story about the Chinese farmer that has a horse, and the horse, runs away in the night. And then the neighbor come to the Chinese farmer and said, "Oh, what a shame, your horse, that's a bad news, that's a terrible bad news, your horse, ran away." And the farmer says, "Well, good news, bad news, we don't know." The next day, the horse comes back, and then the neighbor goes back and says, "Oh, that's a great news, your horse came back." And then the farmer said, "Good news, bad news, we don't know." It's going to get annoying a little bit, this story, but follow me here. Then, the next day, the son of the farmer was riding the horse, and he fell off, and broke his leg. And then the neighbors again go there. Oh, what a bad news! Your son fell off and broke his leg. And the guy said, well, good news, bad news, we don't know. And then the next day, finally, the military service comes to the door because they were in war. They needed to collect all the young boys to go to war. And they go to the farmer. And of course, the son has the broken leg and they don't pick him. And then the farmer goes again there and says, oh, what, you're very lucky, it's a good news, your son didn't go to war. And the guy say, good news, bad news, who knows? Now, the moral of the story is, you don't know, you cannot connect the dots looking forward, but only looking backwards, as Steve Jobs used to say. And whatever is happening to you, is it good news, bad news? I'm sure if you look closely and if you adapt to the change, it's always good news.
Perfect. And I'm never going to be able to beat a bit of Chinese philosophy to finish on. So it's fantastic. And that is a really, really great story. This year, especially, Giuseppe, I think the universe has provided us very, very things. It's not horses running away. It's maybe team members leaving, parting ways with customers. And at that time, that could be the biggest thing that's happened to you. It could upset you. It could be, you can't understand it. But I know this year, more than any other year, we've passed it over to the universe, my leadership team and I. And at the time, we couldn't understand it. Very much like not getting conscripted away to die in a Chinese war. A broken leg is a lot better than dying. Similar things happen in business all the time, guys. And I think if you keep faith, going back to what Giuseppe said, the vision is in his head. If you can keep the faith in your vision, guys, the universe, you're in the right vibrations, not to get airy-fairy, but the universe will provide for you. So a little bit of Chinese philosophy to finish on. Thank you very much for your time, my friend. We will get you back on to speak a little bit more about property on the next episodes, maybe next month, but I will put Giuseppe's details here. Please link, connect. If you've got a property in Stirling or you want to buy properties in that area, please use his agency. So thank you very much for your time, sir. Fantastic Monday morning. This has definitely inspired me for the week. Keep up the good work. And guys, please connect with Giuseppe. Give him some business support. These small businesses, every single customer really makes a difference. Thank you, Giuseppe. Thank you, audience. And we'll see you next week. Cheers, guys. Bye.